Yo, it is Tuesday. That was kind of a weird intro, but you know how it is. Sometimes we got to get a little, different. Tuesday, like I just said, and you probably already knew, and we're back with small ball. So I'm going to alert the world. It's a Tuesday, so you guys know what that means. Hopefully, a Tuesday top 10 coming at you later in the show. We have a lot of shorter segments today, kind of like we have a lot more segments and stuff to talk about, but they're going to be a little bit more condensed than usual. We live on IG. Beautiful. World is notified, and we are ready to go. So the last couple of days, I've actually been talking about doing a Q&A from the audience. I am going to do that today, and I have a couple questions that I received earlier in the week, but I also want you guys during the Q&A, and I will alert you when that is, to call in, and we're going to see if we get some callers and maybe do our first actually callers ever on the show, which is something that I want to, going forward, start to do. And if you have questions or opinions about something that you want me to talk about, call in. I'll give you the number, and we will broadcast that, and we will go from there. So, like I said, Tuesday top 10 coming at you later in the show. That's going to be top 10 left fielders, continuing with our positional analysis, top 10s, some other stuff to talk about as well. But the big story of the day, of course, a lot of you have heard, Luis Severino is now out for presumably the entire 2020 season. He will be getting his elbow surgically repaired on Thursday. So he is done. Now, look, to me, I feel bad. I really do, because this is obviously a promising young player who just imagine missing an entire season with injury on a team that their one weakness is what you were the year before in a frontline starter, a frontline ace, and that weakness prevented them from winning a title. Having to watch that, go through that, then spending the offseason to come back and be that piece that you weren't able to be last year, and then 5 days into spring training learning that you got to go through that process again. So that is tough, obviously, for Severino. Very, very upsetting and disappointing. However, Yankee fans, directing this to you, it's okay. You're fine. The narrative today is that the pitching staff, which was banged up last year, struggled last year at times, and the narrative that the injury bug, last year held the Yankees back a lot. Now the narrative is that it's coming back. It's going to be the same kind of a thing, in that a lot of the Yankees are going to be injured. It's going to hurt their chances. They are the favorites of winning a title. But we can just calm down. It's okay. Let me tell you why. Let me address the injury bug thing first. So this injury, now also Paxton's injury, everybody's freaking out because it's like the alarm bells are going off. Injuries are back. Pitchers are going to get hurt during the season. That is going to happen like it does every year on every team at every level. Pitchers are going to get hurt. So if we're talking about the injury bug that was a big setback for the Yankees last year, it was a lot of pitchers, obviously, but it was a lot of hitters as well. And so far, Judge is kind of nagging, and I don't think that an injury to two pitchers says a lot about the entire team as a whole, because these guys are going to get hurt. Everybody in the Yankee staff is going to miss a start at least because they're stiff, they're sore, whatever the case may be. Pitchers are going to get hurt. Unfortunately, Severino now out for the year, which is not something that obviously is going to help. But we're okay. The injury bug is not back in the Bronx as far as we know, because these are pitchers we're talking about. Pitchers are going to get hurt. It's more about the hitters if they can stay healthy. And now the Yankees, here's part two, are a lot deeper in the pitching staff than they were last season. And that was their big problem. Obviously, not having an ace in the postseason is a big detriment, but not having depth in the regular season when those guys get hurt, when those guys go down, is difficult to navigate if you're Aaron Boone, the manager. So now not only do they add a starter, but their young guys are ready to go. They are able to give you a lot more innings than they have when they were younger in years past. That's something that people are overlooking for sure. The likes of a Loaizaga, a Herman when he comes back, Luis Cessa, if Davy Garcia is ready to compete at the major league level. These are now guys that are able to give you innings. And in the early parts of their career, a lot of them struggling with elbow or rather arm injuries, were able to start at the major league level, but didn't give you the innings, the distance that you're looking for in terms of the depth. So when guys go down, you're relying on a 23, 24-year-old with arm issues to carry the workload of the pitching staff. That wasn't an ability that they had over the last couple of years. Now, not only do they add the best pitcher in baseball and add a guy who is going to lead that staff that Severino wasn't able to last year. Like, don't forget, they're not really losing Severino from last year's team. They're just not adding him because he didn't pitch last year. So if you look at the success or lack thereof that they were able to have last year, he wasn't a contributor to that staff last year. So it was obviously a benefit to get him back and healthy and adding him to the mix, but you're not really taking him away from last year's mix. You're just not adding him. So they add Garrett Cole. So they have that ace now for the postseason, and the young guys are ready to give you more length, ready to give you more innings. And when these pitchers go down, like Paxton, like Severino, like Herman with the suspension, now Loaizaga, Cessa, Garcia, potentially Happ can give you that length that you need to win games in the regular season. And then come the postseason, that's where the addition of Garrett Cole comes in to really help you with that. So obviously it's a big hit. I look at this a lot more from an individual perspective, from the perspective of Severino. It's very unfortunate for Severino, who I think has all of the talent that you're looking for in a young pitcher. And again, it's another undersized, really hard-throwing young guy. And all of these undersized fireballers that come up try to make it work. And, at some point we worry about injury. And a lot of them kind of make it through okay for a while. But at some point, you're a 6 foot kind of 6'1" maybe kind of guy, 200 pounds, 205 pounds like Severino, throwing 100, 98, 99. It's gonna wear down your arm, right? This is not CC Sabathia. This is not even Clayton Kershaw is a bigger frame kind of guy, and he's not really. This is not Aroldis Chapman, right? These guys are going to get injured, and it's a serious concern. And a lot of scouts are concerned, but the talent helps them to overlook those injury worries. And unfortunately, it seems like with Severino, he's either going to have to come up with a way to mechanically keep his velocity but lower his effort, or learn to maybe pitch at 95, 96, 97 rather than 98, 99, 100, because it doesn't seem like his arm can handle it. But, like I said, from the Yankees' perspective, obviously not a good sign. Very, very unfortunate loss, but not the end of the world for this season. So, we are ready. We're going to move on from Severino. It's Tuesday. Left fielders, top 10. Here we go. Now, an interesting name that I actually, when I was doing this research, that I was considering putting on this list. I deemed him ineligible because, according to MLB, he is not currently a left fielder. He is currently San Francisco Giants right fielder, and that's Mike Yastrzemski, who I think deserves a lot more credit than people are giving him at this point. But he is ineligible from this list, as is Austin Meadows, who is a candidate from this list as well. So I just wanted to clear that up to make sure that we know who we are dealing with. So, number 10. I wanted, and I know I always say no, others receiving votes, just missed the cut kind of guys. I want to keep it to 10, but I feel like this is worth talking about. I wanted to put Brett Gardner on this list, but I couldn't, because Brett Gardner, to me, does a lot of things really, really well. And I've been critical of him throughout his career because a lot of people think that he is an elite defensive player because of the speed. He came up with speed. Speed has defined his career. However, his defensive abilities over the course of his career have been very, very lacking. And his athletic ability and his speed has made up for that, and it's made him an average defender, but he is not, over the course of his career at all, an elite defensive player. However, last season, he made an incredible leap statistically and, just defensively on the defensive side of the ball. His defensive abilities and instincts are actually catching up to the speed. Maybe that's a function of him losing a step in his older age and forcing him to actually become more technically and mechanically sound. So his defense was much, much improved last year. His power was much, much improved last year. The problem to me comes down to the clutch factor. He is a 186 career hitter in the postseason, and he has had a lot of experience, relatively speaking. To me, in big spots, especially against top-level arms, I don't trust him. I think that his plate discipline is questionable. He's very, 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 very conservative with his pitch selection. He takes really more pitches than anyone I've seen. And against these postseason pitchers that we keep talking about, it's really, really hard to hit behind in the count. So I don't think, if I'm taking these guys for one season, I don't trust him in the playoffs, to be perfectly honest, or even in big regular season spots, late in games. He doesn't get it done, and he strikes out a little bit too much for my liking, especially for a guy who obviously the power was up last year, but doesn't have the power and the home run totals to compensate for that. So Brett Gardner misses the cut. So now let's get down to the list. Corey Dickerson comes in at number 10. Corey Dickerson, and his defense over the course of his career has been very, very, very not good. And it's held him back from, being thought of as one of these top 10 guys. But last year, his defense was passable. It was not good by any stretch, but it was passable. And he makes this list because we underestimate, or at least I did, what he's able to do on the offensive side of the ball. He's a career 286 hitter with a career 832 OPS. Last season, 304, 906 OPS. And get this, Corey Dickerson has played 7 seasons in the major leagues. He's hit over 300 5 times. So in 5 of his 7 seasons, he's been over, or actually 300 or over, which is not something that I knew about him. That is much, much, much better offensively than I anticipated. He can hit for power. He has some pop, and his contact rate for a guy with his power is pretty good. He is an all-around hitter. He can hit all kinds of pitching. He doesn't really have like the postseason experience and really like the big, the big time ABs for me to really speak on that front. And his defense obviously needs work, but he's improving a lot. And he's an all-around hitter, 286 career guy. I think he has to make this list. Corey Dickerson, number 10. I think that Kyle Tucker is ready this year to be a good but not great player. I think that his defense can use some work. I think he will struggle late in the season against top-level arms. I think we don't know how much of the season he's going to spend at the major league level. He's 9th, by the way, spoiler alert, in case you didn't catch on. I think he's going to have a very good first half. This is kind of my hot take prediction. And I think once pitchers start kind of catching up to his tendencies, I think he's going to struggle, especially against guys with velocity. I think his swing is a touch long. I don't know if he's quite ready to make adjustments. I don't think he's really shown the ability to do that throughout his minor league career. I think he's feasted on underwhelming pitching, and I think gets overwhelmed by guys who throw a little bit harder and are able to manipulate the strike zone a little bit better. So I think he's ready to be a good but not great player. And I think once he starts getting some major league at-bats and realizes his flaws, I think talent-wise, he's there already. I don't think his approach at the plate is quite ready yet. His defense is not ready by any stretch. I don't think he runs the bases particularly well. He's quick, but I don't think he has the base running ability that I'm looking for. Career 206 hitter. So it's not like he's had success. Although last year, 269 with an 857 OPS. His lifetime OPS in 220 to 30 game seasons is 652. So again, I think he'll have a good first half. I think by the end of the season, especially if the Astros are in the postseason, I think the better pitching will catch up to him, and I think will give him sort of a wake-up call. But I think once he realizes his flaws, I think he has all of the talent in the world to jump up the ranks, in terms of left fielders, but he needs to clean up his defense. He needs to clean up the swing and miss in his game, and his swing is kind of long. So I don't think he's going to be able to hit velocity very well, or guys that are able to really manipulate the strike zone. But I think he's ready to be a productive player at the major league level. He's 9th, Kyle Tucker. Number 8 is a guy that's not getting enough credit. Rookie last year. When you think of rookies, and I've talked about this a lot, right? There's a very big difference, like I've said many, many times, between a rookie who is productive and is able to have success at the major league level for the first time, and a rookie who's able to be productive and have success, but also shows like they're on a trajectory to improve throughout their career. And Brian Reynolds last year, left fielder for the Pirates, hit 314 with an 880 OPS in his rookie year. And not a highly touted prospect, really. Kind of came out of nowhere. So this is a rookie that has had success at the major league level. And I do think that he shows a pretty good trajectory. His swing is very clean. He defends well. His contact rate is good for a rookie. He's an all-around hitter who can hit all kinds of different pitchers, lefties, righties, velo, not velo. And I think that he's a legitimate prospect. He really came out of nowhere, but a full season of hitting 314. It's not like he was a September call-up. So I think Brian Reynolds deserves a little bit more credit for the season that he was able to put together. And there wasn't really a flaw in his game. He defended. I mean, besides contact, there isn't really any tool of his that stands out. So that's why he's only I think his ceiling is pretty low. I mean, he's not really going to be 30 home run kind of elite defensive kind of guy. But 314, 880 OPS. He only had about 22 home runs, I think. So hitting the ball in the gaps and really making some things happen on the base pass. I like the way he runs the bases. I think he runs the bases very well, and he had a lot of extra base hits and not a lot of home runs. So his, control of the strike zone, his pure hitting ability is very, very good. Power is mediocre. Defense is good, not great, but good. His K rate is decent, pretty average for a rookie. So I think he's an all-around guy who is showing the ability, obviously, to produce at the major league level, but doesn't have those sort of warning signs that I look for where I see tumbling ready to happen, like a Gary Sanchez, like a Miguel Andujar, who I've talked about, who are able to have success early, but sort of project to take a step back. I think Brian Reynolds projects to either be a similar player to what he was last year, or even if he adds a little bit of strength and athleticism, could actually improve and become a top 5 left fielder in this game. So he's only 8th, but I really like Brian Reynolds, and I think that he's going to be a very solid player for a very long time. Brian Reynolds 8th. Not getting enough credit. I think, honestly, could have been top 3 in Rookie of the Year voting, in my opinion. 7 is Mark Canha. So a breakout season last year of a 273 batting average, 913 OPS, and 26 Jimmy balls. But lifetime 243, lifetime 783 OPS, hadn't eclipsed 20 home runs until last year. His defense over the course of his career has been mediocre. Last year it was actually very, very good, and he's versatile. He can play all over the place. Right now he's projected to play left, so he's eligible for this list. But his defense, especially for a guy who doesn't move particularly well, is very, very strong. His strikeout rate is good, not great. Again, a breakout year, but I think that his combination of contact and power is very impressive. I think that defensively, especially for a guy with, who's more of a power kind of profile, I've talked about this a lot. Like, what people don't realize, especially like these analytics people, where they want, like, analytics people always talk about how important power is and then also how important defense is. And what they don't realize is that they don't really mesh very well at all. Like, a lot of power guys struggle defensively, and a lot of good defenders don't have the power that these analytics people are looking for. So when you have a guy that can do both, I think that's really underappreciated. And Canha, like I said, is not really an athlete. He's not much of an athlete, but defensively and statistically last year, he was very, very solid at 3 to 4 different positions and hit 273 with a 913 OPS. So again, lifetime 243, maybe a breakout year, but a lot of these A's, sort of power-ish hitters over the last couple of years have really improved and have shown, sort of that their breakout seasons aren't really as fluky as a lot of other guys. Maybe their hitting staff is, not getting enough credit. Maybe there's something to that. I think Mark Canha, obviously, if he's able to continue the success that he had last year, is a top 6, top 7 left fielder in Major League Baseball. But I worry that it was kind of a fluky year. I think talent-wise, maybe doesn't quite meet the standards of some of these other guys, but I think his instincts are very good. I think that he's an all-around hitter. Again, combination of power and contact is very impressive. Mark Canha, 7. Number 6, this is funny. I flip-flopped on 5 and 6 for quite some time, and then I actually looked into some of the stats, and these two guys, 5 and 6, actually have the same exact lifetime batting average at 277, which made it all the more difficult. But I'm going to go with Tommy Pham at 6. Like I said, 277 career hitter, lifetime 844 OPS, which is higher than that of who I have 5th. Tommy Pham is an incredible athlete. 25 stolen bases in today's day and age is very, very good. His defense for somebody with that level of athleticism and that level of agility is really, really, really lacking. Statistically, very, very, very not good in left field, in the outfield. So he really needs to try to clean that up. But I think he's clutch. I think he can hit in the postseason. I think he can hit postseason level arms. He has to learn how to hit a little bit better against right-handed pitching. Right now, he feasts on left-handed pitching. But again, lifetime 844 OPS for a guy who runs that well is very, very impressive. And his K rate is average. It's over the course of his career, it's been pretty not good, but he stepped it up a little bit last year. He was able to tap into his power a little bit as well. I think athletically he's there. If he can clean up some of the mechanical things like his swing and miss, like his defense, I think he has the athletic ability to be a top 5 left fielder in the game, but his defense is too weak to put him higher than 6th. I like what he's able to do at the plate, but again, he's got to hit righties a little bit better, and he's got to make a little bit more contact. Tommy Pham 6th, and now Andrew Benintendi, I have 5th, and he's been a little bit disappointing. I think when he came up as a prospect, he was. I mean, I thought of him as a can't miss guy in his rookie year. I think there are a couple guys, maybe like 1 or 2 a year, where they come up, and it's like, this guy might not be a superstar, but he's going to contribute at this level for a long time. That's how I feel about Bryan Reynolds, and that's how I felt about Benintendi, but he's kind of taken a step back from his 290 season back in 2017, in 2018. Lifetime 277, like I said, same as Pham. Last year, 266. So he took a step back. Lifetime 796 OPS, which is lower than I would have thought. Last year was 774. Back in 2018, it was 830. So his 2018 season was very, very good. His K rate took a step back this year. His contact rate, that is. So he's got to make a little bit more contact. Being a left-handed hitter in Fenway Park is tough, but he doesn't hit particularly well on the road either. His defense has shown signs of being special. He's a playmaker defensively, but I don't always love his instincts and his mechanics. So I think he has a high ceiling and a low floor defensively. I think that he makes a lot of plays that other guys wouldn't, but also misses a lot of balls that a lot of average defenders wouldn't. So he's hot and cold defensively, hot and cold at the plate. I'd like to see more consistency, but he's a top 5 left fielder simply on talent. His hitting ability is incredible. His athleticism in the outfield is incredible. He had 9 assists last year in left field, which is really, really good. I forgot to mention Tommy Pham had 8 and no errors last year in left, which is impressive. Benintendi, had 9. His throwing arm is very, very strong and even more accurate. So again, his instincts aren't great. I don't think he'll ever be an elite defender, but I think he can clean up some stuff there. And athletically and just on a talent basis, I think he has the ability to at some point be an elite hitter in this game. But I think he's only 5th at this point because the inconsistency is a little bit alarming. And he's taken a step back from his rookie year and his 2018 season as well. Andrew Benintendi, 5th. Michael Brantley is 4th, which might be a little lower than a lot of people have him. He's a career 297 hitter. I mean, let's not sell him short. Last year hit 311. Career 792 OPS is good, not great. Last year 875 is very, very good. And his K rate is off the charts. It's top 5 in the game, which is very impressive for a guy with 22 home runs, which isn't incredible in today's day and age. But with an 875 OPS, he struck out, I think, 66 times in pretty much a full season, which is very, very, very good. His defense is what holds him back to me on this list. People really overestimate him defensively. He struggled last year in maybe the easiest place to play left field, that is Minute Maid Park. It's small. Obviously, left center is kind of tricky, but that falls more on the center fielder than the left fielder because it's small out there and he doesn't have a lot of ground to cover, and he's statistically was not very good. And in the postseason, oftentimes they needed a defensive replacement for him. I think that's where Kyle Tucker can come in and maybe even Preston Tucker. But to me, the defense is what's holding him back. And I don't want to overlook the offense, but the top three guys on this list are maybe a hair worse in terms of pure hitting abilities. A couple of them have more power, but the defense is what's preventing him from being a top three left fielder in my book. So Michael Brantley is fourth. Also, getting up there, hasn't really shown that he's going to take a step back anytime soon, but he's not quite in his prime. And the top three guys on this list are even before in some cases. So maybe something to watch out for as well. Michael Brantley, fourth. David Peralta does not get enough credit. He's a career 290 hitter. I don't think a lot of people realize that about him. Career 824 OPS. Career. That's not last season. Career 824 OPS. Now, he did hit 275 last year, which is lower than his lifetime average, but still pretty good. In 2018, he hit 293. In 2017, he hit 293. And in 2015, he hit 312. So he's hit over 290 3 times in the last 4 years. To me, he gets a little bit of a an Arizona bias. That's the second easiest place to hit in Major League Baseball in Arizona, because the air is very hot, it's very humid, the air is pretty thin, it's easy to hit the ball far, but he's very good on the road. He's better against righties than he is against lefties. He has to clean that up. I think that's, especially in the postseason, a weakness for sure, to not be able to hit, one side of the mound. So he's got to clean up his ability to hit lefties. His defense last year was absolutely incredible, especially in a very difficult place to play. The outfield in Chase Field. It's a dome, which is tricky. It's weird in the corners and deep in center. It's hot, like I said. The ball's coming off the bat really quickly. I think people underestimate how difficult it is to play the outfield in Chase Field in Arizona. David Peralta was statistically a top 3 defensive left fielder and a top 10 outfielder. They underestimate his defense. His K rate is solid. It's not incredible, but it's very solid. And again, 290 career hitter, and he has some pop as well. So all-around hitter, all-around player, probably missing that run tool. His arm isn't really spectacular, but he tracks the ball very well, and he plays the ball on the ground very well, especially for an outfielder in a tough place to play in Arizona. So I think he deserves a little bit more credit, and he's third on my list. The only thing that's holding him back really from being second is the power. And Eddie Rosario, who's my number 2, hit 32 home runs this year with a solid, not incredible, but solid strikeout rate, much better than it's been in throughout his career. Career 279 hitter, which is a little lower than Peralta. Career 788 OPS, which is less than I would have thought. Last year, 800 OPS and 276 average. But again, 32 bombs. Defense, not really where I want it to be. But athletically, he is an explosive athlete. He hits for power. His arm is probably the best of any left fielder, maybe outside of Yoenis Cespedes. Very strong and accurate throwing arm. Is limited, in terms of his mobility. Doesn't track the ball all that well. Is a little bit, clunky in the way he moves out there in the outfield, especially with balls on the ground. He really needs to clean up His ability to play the ball on the ground. He struggled with that, and he's had quite a few errors in that respect. But there's something about him in big spots that just makes me confident with him at the plate. And I have him in fantasy, so I'm rooting for him to do well. And he always seems to come through against the best pitching in the league, which is something that I'm looking for in a guy that is going to be hitting in my lineup in the postseason. So to me, the clutch factor edges him over a lot of these guys. The power obviously is there, the athleticism. I think he plays with a lot of energy. He's young and I think improving, whereas like a Peralta, a Brantley may be ready to start hitting the decline a little bit. So statistically, Rosario's not quite up to speed with Peralta, and Brantley, but I think athletically, he is a pretty significant step ahead. And honestly, this is maybe kind of like a feel thing more than a statistical thing. But I really, really like Eddie Rosario, especially late in games and in big spots late in the season. I'm interested to see what he'll be able to do. I mean, assuming the Twins make it back to the postseason, what he'll be able to do in the playoffs. Again, this might be a little bit too much of a a feel kind of a thing with Eddie Rosario, but I really, really think highly of him. He's my number 2. And number 1 is easy. Maybe the easiest number 1 of all of these lists that I've done so far, which is saying something. Juan Soto is 21, has already been probably not quite the leader, but a number 2 on a World Series winning lineup. 110 RBIs last year, and the Nationals in the regular season offensively were good, but not a World Series caliber lineup. 108 walks. His plate discipline is incredible. 937 career OPS and a 287 career average. And I say career, it's only been 2 seasons, but still. 34 bombs last year. And to me, the clutch factor is off the charts. Josh Hader, lefty in the 8th wild card game. Honestly, if he doesn't get that hit, the Nationals, World Series champions, might be bounced in the wild card game. So the clutch is there. Also, in the NLDS, big time home run off Clayton Kershaw to set up the Rendon game tying homer as well. You don't see, guys this young having this much production early, especially against the likes of a Clayton Kershaw and a Josh Hader, both lefty. So to me, he doesn't even have to get better if he wants to be an elite player, but he's still improving. He's already an elite player. I think that he's going to be a top 5 player this year, all around position player. He can hit lefties, he can hit righties, he can hit velocity, he can hit movement. He can hit any pitch on any corner from any arm in the game, in any spot. Maybe the clutch is, pure hitter in the game, and obviously also has the regular season, sample size of statistics to show for it as well. So Juan Soto, the defense is the only issue. His defense really needs some work. He's not really a tremendous athlete. Obviously has the hand-eye coordination, but doesn't run very well. He runs the bases very, very well, which I forgot to mention, but not, isn't the fastest guy. His hands aren't really great either, but he throws fairly well. He's got to clean up his defense. I think that his baseball instincts are terrific. His defensive instincts aren't really up to speed with what they are offensively and in other respects of the game. And he's never really going to be an elite defender because he just doesn't have the athletic ability. But I think if he can clean up some of his mechanics defensively and become an average or better defender, obviously that's enough to make up for the elite stuff that he's able to do on the offensive side. So Juan Soto to me is number 1, and there you have it. Tuesday, top 10 left fielders this season. So to recap, Soto 1, Juan Soto, Eddie Rosario 2, 3 is David Peralta, 4 is Michael Brantley, Andrew Benintendi 5, Tommy Pham 6, Mark Canha 7, Brian Reynolds, the rookie 8, Kyle Tucker 9, and Corey Dickerson 10th. Now, I want you guys to call in if you have questions. So how I want to do this, and this is obviously going to be a work in progress. It's the first time we're going to have callers on this show, and if I don't have any, we'll save it for another day. But if you have any questions or comments, you just want to share something, you can do one of two things. I would like you to comment on YouTube that you sent me a message, so I make sure that I see it. And you can either, if you have my Snapchat or phone number, you can alert me that way and say, hey, I want to call in, and I'll put you on the phone. And if you don't, you can DM the Small Ball Show Instagram, and I will put you on as well. So if you have questions or comments, obviously not required, but I have some questions lined up that I got earlier in the week. But if we don't have like enough, I want to save that segment for later in the week. So if you have something to say, please let me know and comment, please, just to make sure that I know so I can check. But I'm going to move on to a new topic so that we don't, obviously waste any time. So I'll leave that up to you guys. And so, shifting gears. I think a lot of people, including myself, are guilty of taking what we see in spring training and thinking a little bit too highly of it, right? Baseball is back, and we're all very excited. And I think what happens to me a lot of times and others is we see something and we're kind of looking for things, right? We're kind of, projecting maybe a little bit too much. We see something, we think it's going to be the biggest deal in the world. And that's obviously understood, right? We understand that spring training is not, the be all and the end all. But I've noticed a couple things that I think can be important and I want to talk about. Number one, less important than the second, but Nate Pearson is going to be an elite reliever in this game. I whiffed on him coming out in the draft, second round pick. I think that I did not like his command. I did not like his durability question marks. But he's refined his command, like basically to the point where it's no longer even an issue. Coming out of high school, and he was not where he needed to be in terms of his command. Obviously, always a live arm with incredible movement. He was sitting 98 as a high schooler. Now, obviously, hitting triple digits, touching triple digits. And the command is where it needs to be. I think Nate Pearson is ready. I think he's going to be a top 3 reliever for a long time. And I think, like we talked about with Severino, undersized guys who throw pretty hard, but he's not undersized. He's maybe 6'2", 6'3", solid frame, but not a lot of effort in his delivery, a lot less than Severino and others. So I think that the injury question marks are kind of behind him. I think Nate Pearson of the Blue Jays is, and they were talking about trading him a couple years ago as a prospect. I whiffed on him coming out of the draft. I thought that he was a bust, but he's not. He's the real deal. He threw earlier today against the Yankees and just dominated their lineup for an inning. I think he's the real deal. I really do. I think there's always, consistently one like frontline relief pitching prospect. And in every draft, there's probably one guy who turns out to be legit. Nate Pearson, second round pick. I think he's the real deal. It's not going to be long before he's able to be a top level reliever, and he's going to be doing it for a long time. The velo's been there since he basically his entire career. The command has not, but he's refined it. I didn't love his, his intangibles and his pitchability coming out of high school, but he's really, really refined the mental side of his game. I think he's ready to go. I really, really do. Nate Pearson looks sharp. His slider looks very sharp. He's added a changeup, which he did not have coming into the draft. And obviously the velocity is where it needs to be for a top-level relief arm. So Nate Pearson, watch out. He's the real deal. He is a candidate, in my eyes, to be reliever of the year for the next 5 to 10 years. And I noticed something else in spring training. Now, we've all been very critical of Bryce Harper over the last 5 years. And honestly, it's getting to the point where I think he's become underrated. I honestly do. Every baseball fan in the world thinks that they're brilliant when they tell everybody how overrated Bryce Harper is. Well, newsflash, he was overrated 5 years ago, and we all saw this coming. Obviously not the player that he projected like he was going to be in his rookie year, projected to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, now is still a very productive player. A lot of people, like I said, it's the coldest hot take in sports that Bryce Harper is overrated. We all know that. Now we can move on, and I think it's gotten to the point with all of this talk, negative talk about him, where I actually would go out and say that he is underrated. But here's something interesting that I noticed in spring training earlier today, I should say. Yesterday and earlier today. Let's take a step back, flashback to his rookie season, right? And he was as special of a prospect as we've seen in a very, very long time. First overall pick, was hitting 500-plus foot home runs as a 17-year-old in Tropicana Field at the high school home run derby. And comes up and was special. But think about what made him special. Obviously the power. Obviously the explosive athleticism. But he, as a young player, played with an energy that I've never seen from a young player. He stole home about 5 games into his major league career as a 19-year-old rookie, stole home. In the outfield as well, he represented energy. And that was what was most impressive. Obviously, the power was there. And then what happened was, over the course of his career, kind of got in his own way, got in his own head, realized that he was a special talent, and kind of played into the new power-centric movement and really lost a step in his contact, in his defense, and did not play with nearly the effort that he used to. And if you just look at him optically, over the last 5 or so years, he has looked sluggish. He has looked irritated. I mean, obviously he left Washington, so not sure how he felt in that situation. And this is really interesting because last year I saw something from him that I hadn't seen from his rookie year, and I saw it again yesterday, and I saw it again today in spring training. Not sure what was going on in Washington. This is something to look out for because he comes to Philadelphia, and last year, which is when I started to realize that maybe he is the Hall of Fame level player that we once thought he was going to be. He was playing with an energy and an enthusiasm and a passion last year that I hadn't seen from him since his rookie year. There was a stretch of about 15 to 20 games last year for the Phillies where he was carrying that franchise. Big late hit after big late hit. He had that incredible walk-off double against the Braves in that huge comeback win, and it was just sort of like a poster moment for that big 15 to 20 game stretch that they had. And over that stretch and over parts of the season, he showed that passion and that energy that really makes him special. A lot of guys have the power. A lot of guys have that athleticism. What made him so special as a prospect and as a young player was the athleticism, the power, but also the energy, the passion, And then over the course of his career, his intangibles and his narrative went from a guy who plays with his hair on fire to a guy who gets into fights in the dugout, isn't really always giving his 100% effort. Numerous occasions he's been, called out for not hustling. He's actually been benched a couple of times for not running out ground balls. But last year, I saw a different Bryce Harper. And it was a Bryce Harper at times, and again, not for the whole season at all, but at times showing signs of what he used to be. And I'm not sure what happened to him mentally, but he left Washington, comes into a new organization, and I talked about this. This is super interesting. There's a lot of layers here. I talked about the Phillies. They were my fifth most attractive organization to play for, in my opinion. And it was kind of like this. The biggest thing for me in that respect is this like loose but still very passionate fan base. And I think Bryce Harper, honestly, in Washington was not able really to handle the pressure. And I think everybody noticed that and everybody criticized him for that. And it took the life out of his game. And it took the energy out of his game. And struggling at the plate, struggling in the field, not living up to expectations took a lot of the energy and the passion out of his game. Now he comes to Philadelphia, signs a 13-year, $300 million deal. He's set financially. He has a 13-year deal. He's in the place, presumably, that he wants to be. I think last year at times he was a lot looser and he played with a lot more energy, which is really what makes him special. And now yesterday he had an interview and he was talking about his hair and his style, his headband that had his newborn, not newborn, it was about 6 months ago, but his new son's name on it. And that's the Bryce Harper that we're accustomed to seeing. I think there are guys that can get away with playing with passion because they do it in the right way, and there are guys that can't. And I think his passion made him special early in his career, and people were critical at times of him going a little bit overboard, right? And I think that got to him. I think he took that personally and let it kind of drain the energy out of him. Now he comes into a new system. I think he's really maturing, whatever, as a character in this game. He's kind of stepping into his prime. He's not a young kid anymore. Think about it. He has been a highly touted prospect since he was about 15. Comes into the major leagues at 19, has a lot of success. This is a guy that's been criticized for his entire baseball career. I think that had an effect on him mentally. Now he comes into a system that presumably he's comfortable with because he signed there for 13 years. And last year showed signs of being a lot looser, playing with a lot more energy. And today, he walks first at bat in a spring training, third inning of a spring training game. Second pitch, swipes second base, slides head first, gets up, a little juice. And obviously it's these little things. But that stolen base earlier today in the third inning of a spring training game gave me flashbacks of the Bryce Harper that we're accustomed to seeing. And he did an interview yesterday, like I said. and it was about the hair, and it was about the headband and the style. And that loose, fun-loving, energetic Bryce Harper, I think, is the one that allows him to play at his best. And that is something that he's distanced himself from because of the criticism over the last 5 or so years. And obviously his contact needs to improve, and obviously his defense needs to improve. But the athleticism has always been there. The power has always been there. And the energy was there when he was in his rhythm and performing productively. And then he kind of lost track of that. I'm starting to see it come back. And again, it's interesting that he comes into this new system and it starts to unfold that way for him. I think this season, it's very, very possible, I think, that he has figured himself out mentally and he is feeling a lot more loose, a lot more passionate about the game. I think he sort of realized, look, I'm still an incredible talent. Tune out some of the noise. Get back to playing with that energy. And I think if he's able to do that, it's all up here for me with Bryce Harper. If he's able to play with that passion for the whole year, last year showed signs for that 15-game stretch and other moments, if he can be back to where he was mentally as a rookie, as a young player, the Phillies make the playoffs. I think that's what it comes down to. Because obviously he is the determining factor, and I don't think he's going to be able to be as productive as he needs to be unless he's playing with that loose, passionate energy. And I saw it earlier today in the third inning of a spring training game. He walks, swipes second base, head first slide, gets up, little bit of passion, energy, a little bit of fire that we haven't seen from him in a while. And yesterday, again, the interview wasn't about, the critics. It wasn't about his contract. It wasn't about, his level of production. It was about his hair and his stylistic choices. And that's the Bryce Harper that we liked and haven't been able to see for the last couple of years. So to me, it looks like he's figured it out. And I've been saying this about him for a while, and he hadn't figured it out, and he's been struggling. Now I think he's ready. And if I'm right, and if it's true that he's figured it out, I think the Phillies make the playoffs. I really do. And I'm going to have to revisit my predictions. It remains to be seen whether I'm right about this new and improved Bryce Harper. But if he's playing with that energy, not only is he producing more, but he carried that franchise for 20 games. And they were, struggling early in the year. The expectations were high and they were not meeting them, and the fans were not happy. But again, Philly is forgiving more so than other big market teams. And he took it upon himself to rejuvenate the energy in that franchise. And I think if he has come to terms with that and has realized, look, I'm an incredible talent. I just got to go out there and be myself, which is a guy who has a lot of passion for the game. I think the Phillies get back to the postseason. And if he doesn't, they don't. And I think it's on him to figure that out. And a lot of people understand that it's on him and largely on him to get the Phillies back to where a lot of people think they can be. But to me, it's not the production. It's the mental stuff. It's the passion, the fire, the energy. And then with that, the production will come. And that will do it for today's Tuesday show. Thank you so much for watching. Drop a sub if you haven't. Drop some comments for questions. I didn't get to those today. We will get to them later in the week. A lot more stuff to talk about this week. Talked about Severino and the Yankees pitching situation. Talked about top 10 left fielders in the game Tuesday, top 10. Talked about Nate Pearson. Talked about Bryce Harper. and we got a Q&A coming at you later in the week, so please drop some questions. Thank you so much for watching. Like, sub, recommend if you feel inclined to do so. The logo, the small ball logo, is coming. It's in the works. So look out for that. That is exciting as well. And the Instagram is going to get a little bit more active as well with some clips, some quotes. I know I've been saying that for a while, but I think we're ready to go in that regard. So again, thank you so much for watching. That's going to do it for the Tuesday show. Tomorrow we'll be back at it, 9:30, 10, something like that. I will keep you updated. But again, like, sub, and recommend if you feel inclined. Thanks again for watching. I will see you tomorrow on Wednesday back here at Small Ball. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later. Peace.